You want to kick us off? Talk us through the week, day in the market so far, what you've been looking at?
Absolutely, man. I'm pumped to be on with you guys for Power Hour. Yeah, let's talk about what's going on in the market today. So, I'm actually seeing some really interesting things going on under the surface. So, right now, as the market sits, we have the S&P 500. It's up maybe like a quarter of a percent, about a third of a percent. And so far today, it's been a chop fest if you're looking at the S&P 500. For some investors, they really are just playing the SPY. But for me, I go under the hood, I look at the sectors, I go into individual stocks. And this trend that we're starting to see is energy prices. Everyone was super concerned about energy. Oh my gosh, we have this hyperinflation. There's no way to stop it. Rates are going higher because the Fed needs to come in and hike rates. That way we can prevent this inflation. Now all of a sudden it's like a gift from up above. Crude oil has come off about 20% from the highs, and we're starting to see those commodities also just lose their bullish trends. So this is exactly what the market needed. And now what we're starting to see is those commodities are coming off. Right now I have a small short position in commodities that I've had on for a couple weeks. So that is doing well. I took my first target on it, and we are starting to see the growth stocks that do horrible, that have done horrible the past year and a half during this inflationary regime. Now they're starting to come off the canvas and they're actually starting to set up. So I'm noticing like some individual names like a Snowflake, for instance, or Roblox or Global E, which I own. A lot of these names are coming off the lows. They're reclaiming their key moving averages. And the ARK Innovation ETF, it's up over 5% today. So I think there's some awesome things going on under the hood. Biotech, which has been in the dumps for the last year and a half, that is coming off the lows very nicely. Chinese stocks are coming off the lows very nicely. So I think we're setting up for a soft inflation print that's going to come out in July. And I think we're setting up for some brighter times ahead for growth investors and really just, market participants as a whole.
Okay. I love the enthusiasm and optimism for the market here. Interesting to hear kind of, what's happening with inflation and growth stocks, the pullback in oil, how it all, factors in. I do think we have another leg down here, but I'm always open to hearing otherwise. All right, Richard, unfortunately, we weren't able to have Brian here this week, but excited to have you back on as always. So I invited a few more people to kind of just fill in the panel, and I'd love to get some of your thoughts on, current market, past week, what you've been doing since our last call.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me back on. And Andrew, nice to hear you speak as well. Yeah, in terms of the general market, I'm seeing a lot of the same things that Andrew is looking at. But I think we still have to remember that a lot of these stocks and a lot of the sectors and ETFs are still under declining 50 SMAs. So although we're definitely seeing them reclaim the 21 EMA in some cases, we still have to be aware that there are some hurdles to still overcome, and also a decent amount of overhead supply on many of these stocks. If a stock falls 70-80%, it's going to take quite a while for it to form out another stage one base. And then from that point on, then it can start to, regain that momentum and start a new stage two uptrend. Looking at the Qs, let me bring up that chart here. I was really encouraged by kind of yesterday's action off the gap down. I thought that was a really good initial response. Easily, if the sellers really took control, we could have undercut and fill that gap that we had put in on that gap up on 621. Instead, we pretty much rallied straight off the lows. A lot of stocks were setting up during that time, and even today, we've kind of had just a consolidation day where we pretty much found support at yesterday's close and are holding up pretty well. So this sideways move, I think, is very constructive. And we'll have to see from this kind of sideways action consolidation whether we basically come out of the top of the range or the bottom of the range. It's kind of as simple as that. And I'm definitely aware that we're still below declining 21 EMA, 50 SMA, 200 SMA on the overall index. So we remain kind of in a corrective state. But we are starting to see kind of subtle decoupling from growth stocks and more individual stocks set up and form higher lows as the market is forming lower lows. So that's what I'm trying to key in on. So, in terms of the overall market, still have to be aware that the overall trend is down, and really until we retake that 21 EMA and that starts to increase, we start to build above that moving average. I'm still going to be aware of that. And looking at the SPY, it's pretty much the same story. We had a nice gap up on 621, a nice recovery off the open on this past Wednesday, and then an inside day consolidation day so far today. But we remain on below those key moving averages, and we just have to be aware of that. It's not going to turn around in one day. It's going to take time. Probably a lot of sideways action is needed before a bottom can truly form, and we have absolutely no idea whether that day, Friday the 6/17, was the bottom. Right now we're in a correction, so we could easily roll over, but it's the start of something, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking for right now, and a lot of the same sectors and areas that Andrew mentioned I'm also looking at. Biotech, solar, as well as a few growth stocks as well are shaping up. But I'm always going to kind of have my bias set that I'm going to try to focus on the new leaders, not necessarily the ones that had performed super well in 2020, 2021, and have gotten completely destroyed. So I'm looking for stocks and uptrends while the overall market is in a downtrend.
Okay. I appreciate the insight there. So yeah, it definitely sounds like you're looking for there to be a bit of a longer consolidation period, prior to recovery in some of these names. I do have two questions off of that. The first is, are there any names that do look good to you right now? I know that last week you laid out several, and I'm wondering if you did place trades on them, and then, kind of for this week. Obviously it's a tough market, and we could, still see another leg down. We could see consolidation for a while, but of course we continue to kind of eye different setups and pieces. So just interested in what you're looking at.
Yeah, so currently I have two 5% positions, one in UTHR and one in ENPH. And that's pretty much all I've traded so far this week. I entered both yesterday off, that nice action off the open pretty shortly after that recovery started. And those are acting nicely. I think healthcare and kind of biotech in general is a space that's really acting strong. But in that space, you have to be aware of that. You can have added risk there. If a stock misses a trial, they can gap down significantly. So in that space, I'm trying to focus more on the ones that have earnings, sales growth, that type of thing. And UTHR, I think, has been a really nice one to focus on. And it had a beautiful kind of pullback to the 220 area after a nice push off the bottom on volume. It also consolidated right at that 21 EMA, and then we had that push up. And then, of course, that nice recovery yesterday, right after. So UTHR, decent stock, nice weekly chart as well. And I love that's breaking out into new all-time highs today. ENPH, another name that I played. The solar names have also been holding up reasonably well. This chart still has a ways to go to kind of shape up, but we're above a rising 21, 200-day moving average now. 50 SMA is kind of flatlining. It might start to curl up if we continue to build above here. So the overall chart still has a ways to go, but this group has been showing kind of subtle relative strength, and ENPH has shown pretty nice action. And you can see that on 512, the market made an intermediate low. Obviously, it's made two lower lows since, but that day on ENPH on 512, that was the most recent, lower low, and then we basically made higher lows since. So I'm always looking for stocks in an uptrend. When the overall market is in a downtrend, I'm looking for stocks bucking the overall downtrend, bucking the correction. That to me tells me that institutions are, rotating their money into these type of names that they really believe in when the overall market is under pressure. So that's pretty much what I played. There's definitely been a lot more opportunities, especially coming off the lows here. But if the market continues to improve, there's going to be plenty of time to enter those names as they break out from sound bases, and this is just kind of the initial push off the lows. So if this is going to be a sustained uptrend, there's going to be so many stocks setting up in sound bases, cup and handles, whatever pattern is really developing because of the market, and we won't know what to buy. That's what the environment's going to be like. And right now we're starting to see an inkling of that developing, but we're nowhere quite near that point yet where you have to choose between 10, 20 stocks to buy. Instead, there's kind of some lone warriors, at least from my perspective, and we have a ways to go. But a promising start so far, and it's nice to see some stocks setting up and moving.
There we go. Yeah, I think some good points there, especially around bucking the trend, finding areas of strengthen, especially because those don't often just last for a week, right? When you're looking at relative strength, somebody could have gone back 5, 6 months ago and looked at, gas and oil and financials and different pieces that we're starting to bucket. And, what do you know? Those ran for a couple quarters, right? So relative strength can really last longer than just a week. So, optimal for swings and other pieces like that, right?
Yeah, and it's about building evidence, and yeah, depending on your time frame, you're going to be looking for different things. This has been a great market for day traders, super volatile. For swing traders, there's definitely been a few opportunities in these rallies, and of course in the shorts. But relative strength can help you whatever your time frame is. It can help you find those stocks that have some decent potential. And as a position trader, those subtle signs, once the market is finally with us and resumes an uptrend, often the stocks that were showing relative strength and making new all-time highs when the market was in a significant correction, those could turn out to be the potential market leaders. All the best stocks of the past, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, they showed that relative strength often when the market was in a correction, and that kind of that was a piece of evidence that if you're paying attention could help you focus on those type of names when they weren't so commonplace, when not everybody knew about Google or Netflix or believed in the stock. But price talks to us, and we just kind of have to collect that evidence and try to listen to it.
Awesome. Hey, to everybody that's in the audience, we're happy to have people kind of be involved with this. I see somebody's already using it. Again, we have that Spaces chat. It's a new feature. You're probably not going to see it on most Spaces, but it does show up on the Wolf Spaces, for better or worse. So let's use it out. It's in the bottom right of your screen. It should be a little box that looks like a comment, and it should have number 2 in it currently. If you click in that, it will take you to a post that you can kind of click and put questions underneath. So, somebody asked about CHPT. We'll probably get to that. Somebody commented short growth stocks, so we'll take a look at that. Other pieces like that, you can just kind of feel free to drop comments, thoughts, ideas into there. All right, stock market news. I want to pull it over to you and kind of get you involved in this. We're coming up with about 45 minutes left in the trading day here. What's been the biggest news stories of the day? And then honestly, we haven't done a ton of spaces this week, so we'll just be excited to hear if there's anything that really stood out to you this week, that might affect some of the companies that we're going to be trading.
Hey, what is up, everybody? Appreciate and enjoyed the spaces so far. Truthfully, not too much on the news front. I'm going to look back through my page a little bit here, but I know the FDA did announce that they were banning Juuls today. I know Altria owns about 33% of that company, or 35% or something like that. Not a stock too many people trade, maybe a couple they own, but definitely a newsworthy story there. Netflix this morning announced they're going to be. I actually don't think they announced it was at a Variety reportedly. They're firing 300 workers, or did fire 300 workers this morning. Nike announced that they an exit from Russia after suspending operations there. There was another company that did it as well. I don't have that in front of me, but I saw that. And then Kroger announced an increased dividend. Not too much there. We had a couple earnings this morning. We had Intel. They warned that their Ohio expansion could be delayed due to funding. Also, I won't just read through everything here. The last one I am going to say, we did have Warren Buffett filing for his purchase of more Occidental shares. He bought them on the 22nd and 17th. Average prices between $54 to $56. He bought 9.55 million shares of Occidental. So, well, at least Berkshire Hathaway did.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. He seems to be buying a potential top here. We touched on it earlier. Do you have any thoughts on that, Evan?
Truthfully, I really just don't know on oil, and so I mean, maybe he is, maybe he isn't. If you would have asked me this question X months ago, I probably would have, and he would have been buying then. I might have told you yes, he's buying the top. So I don't think I'm the person here to kind of come in and answer that at these levels anyway. So yeah.
Yeah, I respect it. Okay, that makes sense. And then for earnings, what do we have today, and what time should we expect them at?
Ooh, let me go and look. But I know we have FedEx and BlackBerry, BB and FDX. Let me get the times right now. Okay, so this is saying 5 p.m. for BlackBerry. I'm going to go and check somewhere else, double check that. It might be that. But FedEx would be 4 p.m. Let me just double check one thing on BlackBerry, and I'll get back to you on that.
Sure thing. You want to take a second?
Yeah.
Okay, you got it?
Yeah, it does look like it's going to be 5 p.m., so we might not be live for that one.
For
Or
FedEx?
maybe at different spaces. No, BlackBerry. FedEx is right at the close, 4 p.m.
Okay, so we'll do FedEx at the close. We'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, perfect. Thank you, stock market. Is there anything else you want to add in here?
Nothing too much. Just watching those earnings. We had a couple of dividends declared today. Nothing too much changed there, but yeah, nothing too much here.
All right, sounds good. Okay, we've got some good questions in here that I think we could throw around and just get some thoughts on. I'm gonna throw the first to you, Richard, and then I'll come over to you, Andrew. Richard, so the first one was someone asked, they said, after learning support and resistance and learning to use RSI to determine trend, what do you recommend for a beginner options trader as the next important thing to learn to determine when to buy and sell?
Yeah, it's a good question. First of all, I don't trade options. I only trade shares. But just in terms of answering, in terms of technical analysis, I think it's really important to learn kind of the subtle accumulation, subtle distribution signs of a stock and kind of where it's at in its cycle. And what I would do is I would actually read the book Stan Weinstein's Secrets for Profiting in Bull and Bear Markets, and that kind of goes in depth in terms of the overall price cycle of a stock on a long-term basis. And even if you're a short-term trader, it's really important to know. And it goes through stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, stage 4. And if you can learn that and kind of realize and be aware of where that stock is that you're looking within its overall price cycle, that will give you a lot of good knowledge in terms of how to handle that, whether you're trying to hold on for a longer term move or maybe you're just trying to play it short term. So the basics, using moving averages, identifying support and resistance, that's really key. Another thing to look for is volatility contraction. So easy way to do that is to look at a weekly chart and look for an inside week, because on a daily chart that's going to be a volatility contraction where we've had an initial move up and then the entire week's range from that prior week encompasses the current week's sessions. So by definition, some form of volatility contraction. And in all time frames in the market, we alternate from a nice trend to a consolidation period. And then from that consolidation period, we either go to the upside or the downside. So recognizing that kind of plays out, on a weekly time frame, monthly time frame, daily time frame is super powerful. And often what I'm looking for is a longer term uptrend, then a consolidation on that longer term uptrend, within that longer term uptrend. So maybe looking at a weekly chart, we're in an uptrend. And then within that consolidation, I'm looking for a shorter term uptrend off the bottom of that base, and then volatility contraction. So a few days tight, an inside week, that type of thing. And then as the stock resumes to the upside on that short term trend, I'm trying to catch the longer term move up from that base, from that longer term consolidation. So hopefully that was kind of helpful. I don't actually use RSI at all. I think just looking at the price action is kind of going to tell you what you need to know. But definitely for someone just starting out, it could be a helpful indication of where stock is relative to being oversold. And I think that can be quite helpful. But I think just looking at the price action, picking up some great books, Brian Shannon, who's usually on here, technical analysis on multiple time frames, that's another great book to read. So that's kind of my advice for anybody just starting out with technical analysis.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Richard. Andrew, any comments you want to make on that before I throw the other question to you?
The question was, if a new options trader is trying to find support and resistance levels?
Yeah, let's say they kind of feel like, they're getting better at finding support and resistance levels. They're using RSI perhaps to, look at trend and other pieces. What's some of the other components they can kind of add to their toolbox early on?
I think if they're trying to find support and resistance levels, I think it's all about just finding your own methodology. Like, one thing that I really like using is the market profile. And that's showing you basically like at different price levels, what volume went off at that level in different time intervals. But I think, to be honest, like, you could use like the RSI, you could like moving averages. You could use market profile. Like there's like 1,000 different ways of skinning the cat. But I would say that for the most part, like it's all about consistency and building out a framework and a methodology. So like if you're trading something and you're using the market profile levels and like let's say like we all do this, like I do this as well. Like you have a bias and like, maybe you're long and you want it to go up or something like that. And then you're like, well, the market profile says this, but hey, the RSI says this, and I think the RSI is right now. That's kind of like where you don't want to be. So I would say like there's so many different ways of properly doing it, but just make sure that it's something consistent. You could write it out and you can really test to see like, what does my win rate look like when I'm using this methodology?
Perfect. Okay, let's pop into a few of these others here. Let's go over Andrew first. I'll throw it to Richard. All right, maybe we can take a couple of these specific ones. CHPT, what's your thoughts here on that, Andrew?
Let me take a look. One sec.
Sure thing. And then afterwards, once Andrew answers, Richard, I'm going to come to you and I'm not sure exactly so familiar with this. I'll send you the comment in a DM so you can see it. You can let me know if you kind of want to answer that.
Yep, sure thing.
Yeah, I'm taking a look. Okay, so CHPT, this is ChargePoint. And I see, ChargePoint Holdings, it's a specialty retailer. This is pretty interesting. Okay, and it says EV charging networks. Okay, yeah, and I'm taking a look at the chart. This name looks like it sort of fits the bill of what we're starting to see investors rotating into. So Richard mentioned this as well, but the solar group and really just the clean energy group, it is starting to catch momentum. So like the chart is actually looking a little bit better on ChargePoint. One thing that I would say is like always focus on the stocks that are really leading the charge. So like Richard mentioned Enphase. I'm also long Enphase. That's one of my core holdings. But this charge point, like I think if that theme continues to build, and like one thing I do is like I have a dashboard and it shows like traffic lights basically for each of these sectors and which key moving averages they're clearing. And yeah, the solar and clean energy group looks very strong. This is within that group. So yeah, this one it's moving to the upside. I would definitely just love to see like a comparison of this name, versus some of the others because I think, there might be some even better candidates out there, but yeah, to be honest, like I would much rather be long this thing today than like an energy stock or something that's, really losing momentum.
Got it. Cool. Richard, did you see that DM?
Yeah, that's fine. So this is gold spot versus the US dollar. Here, let me go ahead and read the question. So basically, the question was, I'm curious on what you guys think about XAU USD. I can see a bullish market for the next couple of weeks, but it also looks like it's consolidating a bit. So that's kind of their question. So overall, looking at the chart in trading view, we had a nice uptrend from October of 2018 until basically August of 2020. That was kind of the ultimate peak year. And since then, we declined a little bit, and we've overall just been going sideways. What I don't like about this chart is we did have a really nice push up the right hand side of that base starting in February of this year 2022, and then we had a failure of that breakout. We broke back below the 50 SMA, and now we're just consolidating and going sideways right at the 200 SMA. But in the near term, we're in intermediate term downtrend. So, we're in an overall basing pattern going back to 2020, but it looks a little bit weak here, in my opinion, right at that 200 SMA. So I think it really have to push above, those weekly highs from a few weeks ago in mid July for me to say it's back in an uptrend. But it just looks a little bit weak here to me, right against that 200-day moving average. But it's so far holding some recent lows, so we'll see what can happen.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Richard. All right, Andrew, what do you think of? Do you look at biotechs at all? Are you familiar with the biotech segment?
I've been looking at them more in the past few days than I have in a while, but Yeah, I'm not like a biotech analyst or anything like that.
What have you been looking at? The question was, what do you think of biotechs? Any breakout stars?
Yeah, so the biotech group, what's pretty fascinating right now is again, like the biotech group, it's a very high flying, high beta group of stocks. I keep a dashboard up in front of me every day and I'm ranking all of these sectors in terms of their momentum. And the XBI biotech ETF, right now it's in my top momentum slot. So I see it has positive weekly performance, monthly performance. It's having a stellar performance today as well. And also, I have a dark pool dashboard. And the XBI ETF, it's been lighting up on the dashboard. So these dark pool buyers, they are definitely getting involved. So this is a group that is on my radar. There's a stock that I'm looking at. It's the ticker symbol is HALO. It's Halo. But was there a specific stock that you were just asking me about?
Nope. It was the question was just kind of if there were any names in that section that stood out to you.
Oh yeah, so Halo is one that I've been watching. That one looks really good in a sector like biotech. For me personally, I'm much more interested in actually using the sector ETF, just because with those names, like you can have like all these crazy binary events, things of that nature. But to be honest, like this group has been in such a bad trend for literally a year and a half. So when you start to see like, wow, it's actually catching momentum. Okay, it's the number one slot. The dark pool buyers are coming. I think it's definitely worth, looking for these names. So what I typically do, like you can do this as well. I'll open up the ETF and I'll take a look at the holdings in it. Like I'll look at the top 10 holdings and I'll see like, which of these names is outperforming, which one's contributing the most to the biotech outperformance. And that's typically how I'll trade those names. Right now I'm not long any biotechs, but yeah, the Halo is the one that I'm really watching for the days to come.
Okay, perfect. Richard, it looks like he got bumped down for a second, so I'll give him a minute to hopefully be able to get back up here. Andrew, I wanted to ask you kind of in the meantime, I know that you're pretty familiar with the crypto ecosystem. Current thoughts here on Bitcoin, Ethereum. There's been a lot of confusion and different pieces kind of running rampant, but I know that you study this stuff pretty closely. What's your thoughts on the current ecosystem?
So my thought on the current ecosystem, we're at this really interesting time where like, I always try to just think to myself like these big institutions and these big players, they're not sitting around thinking like, oh, Andrew's putting on a position, like it's time to rally this thing or anything like that. Like there are such bigger factors at play. And like this, as well as anyone, Gav, like we just had a major liquidation within the crypto market and we're just seeing dominoes that are falling. And so like we had like the Luna UST, we had Celsius. I'm seeing like maybe like one or two companies like a day that they're saying, hey, we're halting the withdrawals or like we're reducing our withdrawal limits. So like as I look at the price action, I do see that hey, despite all this bad news, we're holding this 20K level. I actually added some Bitcoin at 20K for a long term purchase because I'm super bullish on Bitcoin long term. But that said, like even though I purchased some, I bought some at 25K and then I also bought some at 20K. Like I don't want to be like naive and just be like, oh, it has to go up tomorrow. I'm kind of aware that there's players that are still getting liquidated and things are still being sorted out. So yeah, I'm trying to just take like a longer view on that. And like I feel comfortable buying, Bitcoin, which is the blue chip here. Um, but I know like, hey, just be patient with it. Like it might take some time for these things to be sorted out. At this point in time, I want nothing to do with like any altcoins or anything like that. I've never traded altcoins, but like, yeah, now more than ever, it's like, yeah, I'll allocate some to Bitcoin and then just kind of like chillax and not really go too crazy on the day to day.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Richard, we got you back up here?
Yeah, sorry about that. I switched off my Wi-Fi. Hopefully that helps the connection.
Okay, good to have you back. Hey to everybody in the audience, if you would like to have your questions answered, just a reminder, there's a Spaces chat. It is a newer feature. You probably haven't seen it on too many spaces. pull up the space and just take a look, it'll be at the bottom right. It'll be a purple circle. Inside it has a comment looking emoticon, and it'll say the number 19 because we have 19 comments in right now until somebody breaks that. Somebody break that, make it 20, just for the fun of it. So you can go ahead and drop any questions you have in there. We've been taking them from there. There have been some really good ones, and I've been excited to keep rolling through some of them. We've talked about RSI, we've talked about biotech, we've talked about a couple of other different pieces. I see someone just commented about Gilead, Amgen, and some others. I want to throw it back to you, Richard, and talk about solar for a second. What's been going on in the solar sector? Because it seems to have been you mentioned it a little bit, but I wanted you to dig in a little further.
Yeah, for me, this is one of the key areas of the market that I'm watching pretty closely. And I like to use TAN, which is the Invesco Solar ETF, and that kind of gives you a sense of the overall trend. And back in 2020, this was a super strong group overall. From those COVID lows, we increased about 500% in the ETF itself. And within the group, ENPH, Solar Edge, Run, a bunch of these names, DQ, which is running again right now, acted super strong. And I traded a few of those during that nice move. But all good runs, eventually come to an end and rotation goes into other areas. And in February of 2021, we saw rotation out of this group. And we've just been in the kind of basing period, even a downtrend since then. But just recently, as I noted kind of earlier when we were talking about EMPH, we started to see subtle signs of relative strength. The overall group making higher lows as the market is making lower lows. Their relative strength line, which basically measures the performance of a stock or an entire group versus the S&P 500. That overall line is in a strong uptrend right now over the past few weeks, few months now. So overall, this group is just an area of interest because it's showing that relative strength. And within this group, there's a bunch of pretty good ideas. ENPH has been strong. DQ, which is a Chinese solar company, is actually probably the strongest among this. Really nice run off the bottom here. Since basically the middle of May, this stock is up almost 74%. Nice uptrend above a 21 EMA. We kind of retook some recent highs on Tuesday and Wednesday, consolidation day today. But you've kind of got that added Chinese risk there. So I haven't really been focused on that one too much, but EMPH is the name that I currently own. And it's just an overall area of the market which is seeing some rotation into it. So perfect for swing traders. And if the trend persists and we really start a potential new move in the solar space, good area to look for, position traders as well as longer term investors as well.
Perfect. Hey, as you pointed that out, and Sim joined up as well, I just realized that we are on a bit of a bender since we started this space. So SPY has basically just gone vertical, just popped off pretty much about 0.5% upwards during this space, maybe even a little bit more. And some of these growth stocks are running. So Sim, I'm excited to welcome you up here. Would love to hear, what you've been trading today, this week, and perhaps if you want to go into any plays that you're looking at going into the end of the day today, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I've been trading today a lot of Google. I actually took Google to the downside yesterday, which was really nice. Swung some contracts overnight. Google overall looked weak in the morning, and I was pretty heavy in the money. So because of that, I held my contracts. They paid out really nicely, about 80%. Took Shopify for a little rejection. Didn't really make too much on it, about 20%, but profit is profit. This was in the morning before Jay Powell started speaking. Now I'm seeing this big long, damn, that's a big candle. And then we got the new high a day on Apple as well. So I'm looking for a bounce level on SPX and SPY. Maybe take it for a demand bounce. I'll let you guys know if I get in. If I do get in, it'll be today's expiration on the contracts. And then I'll give out the strike price as well.
Sweet.
I mean, I've been scalping the shit out of it all day, so that's really what I've been doing. I mean, I day traded a little bit of it off of that low, which was nice. So got a nice little percentage gain on that. Overall, super green on the day, super happy. But again, gonna be looking for that end of day little bounce. If this thing will pull back. This thing looks super strong right now. SPY is running.
Yeah, absolutely is running strong. So for sure, do alert us if you do take anything.
Cool, I will.
Perfect. Awesome. Hey Danny, so you popped up here too. What are you looking at? The market's been on a tear since we closed that space.
Yeah, so pretty much the levels that I had mentioned when we were talking, QQQ 285 and watching SPY now at 378. So looking much stronger here. Yeah, it could be a very interesting Friday. Man, I swear people know when I get on spaces, they love to call me, today especially. Um, yeah, looking at some relative strength names, I think Snow and Datadog were two names out of the gate this morning that I was watching. Datadog looks like it's going to potentially finish right at around $100. Snow made its way all the way up to 142. We can't even use the joke Snow is falling because it's no longer falling for the time being. And a lot of other like just individual names that I was watching today. FLNG, ALT was a name that I mentioned last week. Put that out to my group over $9 now at 10.35. Lee Auto is another one. It's been multi-day gaps. So I think going back to last week, June. Excuse me. Is this last week? No, this is. Oh yeah, going back to June 6th. That wasn't last week. That was 2 weeks ago. Multiple gap ups. I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 gap ups over the last 2 weeks. So Lee Auto, definitely something going on there. Just keeps going up. PDD.
Real
Yeah, go for it, Sim.
real quick, I'm taking some SPX calls right here. Got in at $3.
Another one I'm watching is PDD through 65.87. It's got a beautiful ascending triangle forming here on the 30-minute. What I like to do in these types of markets is just focus in on the 30-minute chart. That's where I'm looking for my day trades and my short-term swings, maybe my 1 to 2 day swings. But PDD looks really, really good here. So I think that goes along with the theme of K-Web, which we've been talking about. Also, solar, right? We were looking at that ticker TAN, the solar ETF last week, really for the last couple of weeks. And ENPH, I don't know if anybody remembers, somebody called out $200 calls for this week on, I think it was on Tuesday's space. So those are now in the money, now closing in on 201. I think 206 potentially can come tomorrow. And there's a handful of other names, but definitely a good day for relative strength names, like I was mentioning, Snow and Datadog being the two that really stand out for me.
So somebody just asked a good question. I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts. But we're getting this run right here up today. Some of these stocks that I'm holding are up 13, 14, 15%. The problem is I just feel so conditioned to believe that a sell-off is coming and that we are, headed back down tomorrow, that this is being given up, the classic flush Friday. I just kind of want to get some thoughts because, somebody just posted, and shout out, one of my super followers for super following, Ash Trades Cash. Appreciate you. They basically just asked, do you think I should hold my SPY 377 calls? And it looks like these are weeklies. And, my answer to that is I would hold them for maybe another 20 minutes, but I would be, careful about, holding them into tomorrow. I'm scared, of gap downs at the open, pieces like that. So Sim, you're in those SPX ones. I was going to say, hey, like listen live on our space, right? If, Sim gets out of these, might be a good time to get out of them. What do you think about, holding any into tomorrow?
I mean, personally, I like the close over 377. I actually took some calls yesterday that I swung. I swung the 377 calls. They opened up nicely up this morning. I mean, yeah, over 377 for sure. But I mean, I really like this little pop that we got. We broke we broke my key level that I had, which was at 376.4. So definitely like the upside, but I only swing with profits. So I won't ever swing with any type of balance in my account other than profits. In a market like this where there's not too much direction, I just like to swing with profits and be able to maintain also a small position size when it comes to swinging, just because anything can happen overnight.
Exactly my
Oh, I
thoughts.
also trimmed some of these at 35% right here.
Okay, there you go. There's the trim. So, Richard, quick question for you. You sound like you're swinging. You mentioned you have two 5% positions. How are you managing the risk on those? Is there a stop in place? Are you taking profit at all? How's that working?
Yeah, I always have a stop in place, and right now, my stop is right at break even on both of those. And I may even take some profits tomorrow, depending on what happens here with the price action. I'll watch to see if it's consolidating or undercutting today's lows. But always have a stop loss, and as well, I'm managing risk through my overall position size, which is just 5% of my account in both those positions. So you can manage risk both through a stop loss as well as position sizing, and that way you ensure that even if you get stopped out, it's not going to hurt your overall account.
Perfect. I appreciate that. Richard, are you trading SPX or spot or SPY or QQQ at all? Or are you staying more with individual stocks?
Yeah, throughout this correction, just because sometimes there haven't really been stocks to trade on these, intraday swings, I have traded TQQQ and SQQQ, which are the triple leveraged. But right now, I don't have any of those right now. But looking at the overall Qs, I'd really be interested to see if we can close above kind of a short-term shelf that's been, happening right kind of near 285 on the Qs. We're approaching that now. I think that's a really key spot. We were rejected down from that earlier. So a close on the week, a close on the week above that level, I think would be significant. And we've kind of got that gap to fill, which is right at 288. But I'd love to see a move on volume. And right now, even though we're pushing up, not huge volume to the upside. So we'll just have to kind of see what happens.
Okay, perfect. I see we also have Vegas joining us. Vegas, what have you been up to today?
Real quick, these are up about 85%. I'm going to take majority of profit here, let a couple of them ride at break-even stop loss.
Very nice. Vegas. All right. Whenever you're able to hear me, just let me know. If you're having any problems, DM me. Yeah, nice job with those calls. Which level were they?
Oh, which level did I take them at?
Yeah, they were
I took them on the bounce at 377.3-ish.
Got it. And those were a little bit out of the money?
Those were actually the 37.95 SPX calls that I took.
Okay.
And I
Got
mean,
it.
a
Perfect.
couple of my members took the 3800s, and they printed real well on those too.
Very nice. Awesome. So there you go. To whoever was holding, maybe a good time to sell there on that pump, or at least to take some profits so that you're not, sitting there just holding on to it. Some really good points. All right. This Spaces chat, by the way, for anybody that is on, is still running. We're still taking questions in there as well as if you want to comment on what we're talking about live. We love the interaction. Andrew, let me throw another one over at you. Airlines here. Thoughts on airlines as a long trade, maybe even swinging those?
Oh my gosh. No way. I cannot emphatically say no way even more without being like throwing out expletives. But yeah, the airlines, like I'm looking at the Jets ETF, it just looks horrible. And like airlines are just terrible businesses. They don't make any money. So yeah, like that one for me would be a hard no. If anyone out there is trading them, now that I said that, it's probably gonna this thing's probably gonna rip to 19. So yeah, that's just me though. I would not touch those airlines with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, that's pretty fair. Danny, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, why are you looking at airlines? For me, it's more like, okay, maybe it's going to go up, but why not focus on the names and the sectors that actually are starting to move? Solar, K-Web, Chinese tech. Focus where the relative strength is. Don't think you're smart enough to pick the bottoms and catch the bottoms on some of these names and some of these sectors, because 9 times out of 10 you're going to be wrong. So focus on where the strength is, not necessarily where you think Don't try and be Wayne Gretzky and think where you know where the puck is going to go, because trust me, you don't.
Yeah, good points there. Okay, Vegas, trying you once more, just seeing if you're on and you can hear us. Okay, I'll shoot you a DM. All right, Richard, I want to put back to you for a second. Did you go to that Mark Minervini workshop yesterday?
I did not, unfortunately. I was actually in an interview, so I wasn't able to attend. But yeah, I think somebody's got a replay, or hopefully they'll share it on his YouTube channel. But
Yeah,
yeah, I've learned a lot from both Marks, Mark Ritchie as well as Mark Minervini. So
absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to see, they spoke about, discovering those leading stocks in a bear market. I was wondering if you had any comments on kind of that topic in general.
yeah, I mean, kind of going back to what I've been talking about, right now we're in a correction. We're in a downtrend below most of the moving averages on the indexes. So, the leaders that are going to, do extremely well once we finally do get a push upwards on in the general market are going to show themselves before we actually get a market bottom, and they're going to be standing out and showing those signs of relative strength that Danny's talked about, Andrew's talked about. They're going to be making higher lows. Their relative strength lines are going to be in strong uptrends or even at all-time highs before price does. And they're going to be the ones that are close, as close to all-time highs as they can be and forming strong bases. And you also want to look for, on the fundamental side, groups that are acting well together, as well as having, super strong earnings growth, sales growth, new and exciting products. And most likely they're not going to be the leaders that led the previous cycle. A lot of those have already kind of run their course, and they're going to need substantial time to base and rest a little bit after super strong runs in the previous 2 years. So I'm looking forward to kind of finding those new leaders, those new names that have the potential to triple and double and quadruple even if the market restarts that strong uptrend and we start a new bull market. But I think we need a lot of patience now, but we can always be on the lookout for stocks that are bucking the overall trend, and we can start to build a case for each stock and collect evidence that a stock could be a new leader. So that's probably along the same lines as what they've been talking about. But if there was like a specific idea that they mentioned that you'd like to take on, I'd be happy to talk about that.
Okay. Yeah, I unfortunately, I'm in NFT NYC, so I haven't really been able to attend anything, but just kind of wanted to see if you had any thoughts on the topic. Appreciate the insight there. Okay. Sim, what else are you looking at as we're going into these last 12 minutes? Are you playing any earnings?
No, never. I mean, well, not never. I shouldn't say that. Yeah, I'll play earnings once in a while. I mean, I looked at the ER schedule. Personally, just don't really like anything. I think FedEx would be kind of decent. But actually, maybe I'll play some FedEx. What about you guys? You guys playing FedEx?
I
Anybody?
personally am, I'm intrigued, but I think for me, didn't it have its like best day ever like last week? Something like
Yeah, I'm
that.
gonna look at what the implied move is real quick. Let's see what we got. It looks like the implied move is about 7% or so. Yeah, I might play some FedEx actually. Let me see if I want to play calls or puts. I mean, again, right? This is like a toss up for me. So, I usually ask Mona if she's playing calls or puts, and then I go based on that. I'm not gonna lie, this is a straight gamble for anybody that's new on here. That plays any ER plays. Again, I play strictly with profits. If it goes to zero the next day, then fair enough, right? Like you can't do anything about that. But I strictly play with profits when it comes to this. And I implore, again, not financial advice, but I implore anybody who's new, don't just play ER. You could get smacked very easily on ER if you don't get the percentage move above the percentage implied move. So, but yeah, I'll what do we have here? About 11 minutes. All right, I'll give out an ER play if you want, Wolf.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
it comes out, by the way, it comes out right at 4, and I'm looking at the numbers, 4 p.m. EST. 688 EPS is what's expected. That's up 37.3%, and then revenue is expected to come in at 24.56 billion, up 8.7% year over year. So those are kind of the bars we're measuring against. But yeah, well, back to you.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, you
Anything
see
else
the
you
same implied move on your side, by the way, 7%.
uh
I can take
where
a
do you
look.
typically where do you typically check implied move?
You could look at Market Chameleon typically, but I just want to make sure it's correct because they actually had one that was incorrect a couple days ago.
Yeah, that'll definitely be helpful to look at. Oh man, days where I see like SE up 10% and stuff like Affirm up 12%, it just really feels like a short covering type day. What do you think, Danny?
Say that one more time.
When I have days where SE's up 10%,
Yeah,
Affirm's up 12%,
yeah.
it Square's up 11, and it's like, Celsius is up 14. It's like, okay, are we just short covering here?
Yeah, that's absolutely, it feels like that. These stocks have been beaten down so much. In this environment, you're absolutely going to see these types of bounces. The question is where do they start to fail? So I would throw on some like anchored VWAPs, find out where supply is. I would look at fib retracements, specifically the 618, and key moving averages. If you start to see them converge and have confluence on some of those zones, those are areas I would look to take those names short.
Got it. Andrew, was that implied move?
Yeah, the implied move, Sim, I'm confirming as well. It is about 7%.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, so FedEx on the 13th, I believe, did 12%, and that was their largest move in many a year. So we'll see what happens, kind of moving into earnings. I guess right now, Sim, you can kind of testify to this. This is a much more volatile earnings season than we've seen in the past. These expected moves, even on traditional like value stocks, are seemingly very high in comparison to what they used to be, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Our recent Facebook and Netflix was just dirty. It was ridiculous. But I also saw some that just opened up, completely flat. One of the ones that I will say that I never play, I think I played it in the beginning, Tesla. Tesla always has a tendency to open up flat. Calls and puts get smacked each time. So it's just not something that I like to play. I played, what was it, last week? I had played puts. I forgot on what it was. I think it was Docu. He had played puts on there, and again, you see that recovery, and that recovery happens right in pre-market, right? Unfortunately, so it's crazy. But yeah, the moves that we're seeing. The moves on these bigger companies that we're seeing, they're they're far more than I thought that they would be. We're seeing just like you said, the big value stocks that are essentially seeing huge downside. Netflix is kind of expected, I will say, just because Netflix has the tendency to always tank overall, just not being a super profitable company. And their cash flow, when it comes to even with Facebook, Facebook has a lot of. Facebook's just, with Meta especially. Well, I should say Meta now, right? It's not Facebook anymore. But seeing that move to the downside that we saw, that to me, like, these moves are unexpected. I haven't been in the market too long to be able to see a ton of different ERs, but I didn't expect such a large move. And so, I believe that, but at the same time, I will say that, on certain companies, dip buyers come in really hard. But in a market like this, you just don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what investors are looking for. I always tell people, though, that in the beginning of the day you don't want to, or sorry, the end of the day, if you're going to be taking any type of never count your chickens before they hatch, because anything can happen on that phone call that they have, right? That's really where it's at, because what you're looking for is forward guidance. So certain investors are going to like the information that they hear when it comes to long-term growth of a company or downfall, and that's what they're going to really rely, that either that buying pressure coming in or that selling coming in.
Perfect. Awesome. Let me know if you want to put out that play. We have about 5 minutes left here. Does look like we were able to get Vegas up. Oh, yep.
Yeah, I'm
And
looking at
yeah.
Hey, sorry to interrupt real quick. I'm looking at maybe taking it to the call side, but we got a pretty large run up, so I'm gonna be taking. If I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna take tomorrow's expiration, and it's gonna be very close to the money. But yeah, I'll give it out here in about 2 minutes.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, so I know we have a couple of speakers that have hard stops at 4. We are going to stay on and we will be live through earnings. For anyone that's interested, I'll just change the title of the space. If you haven't already, make sure that you are following our speakers. Richard, Danny, Sim, Vegas, and Andrew are top tier investors and traders. They use different styles, but they each have something really unique to offer, whether that's risk models, technical analysis, they read the tape, they use option flow. There's so many different great tools, and we do a ton of spaces with them every single week. And then, of course, my Stock Market News is up here. He is the fastest and most reliable source for business news, finance news of all types on Twitter. You can see that, obviously, based on his audience, and he's been giving us the news while he's up here. So some great resources to be adding to your repertoire. Since we just have a few minutes left here, I know Sim might call up this play, so whoever's going to speak, be ready for maybe the hand up or whatever. But Richard, I think, do you have a hard stop at 4?
Yeah, unfortunately, I have a meeting, so I'm going to have to head out pretty soon.
Cool. Any other thoughts you kind of want to share on this one? Advice for retail?
Yeah, just be patient, know the overall environment, stick with your own style. And I think the most important thing is to, whatever you're doing, make sure you're managing risk and ensuring that you'll be trading or investing 10 years from now, 20 years from now. It's not worth pushing it in a bad market during a correction. And instead, just think about preserving your capital so you're ready for, the next bull market and the next 5, 10 bull markets as well. I think that's the most important thing. Capital preservation and also preserving your confidence and mental capital. That's the most important thing, honestly.
Great points. Yeah, as always, appreciate you being on, Richard. TCR, see you in the crowd, and for to our space next week, of course.
Yeah,
awesome.
Have a good one.
Danny, I know that you have a hard stop as well. Anything else you'd like to share on this one?
Yeah, just watch those levels I mentioned on the previous space. 378 on SPY, 285 on the Qs. So that's exactly where we are. No surprises here. That sets us up for a very, very interesting day tomorrow. Do we gap and go? Do we gap and fade? Or do we open up flat and have crazy volatility intraday? I think we have to have a plan both to the upside and the downside in this market. If you have a swing trader's hat, you have to take really fast, quick swing trades. If you have a day trader's hat, this is a great market. Scalpers, of course, don't need to say anything more about that. But yeah, just like Richard said, know what your competency is, but don't be afraid to stay on the screen and observe what you don't do well. There are a lot of ways to learn how to trade through a bear market. It's not going to be like, for me, I'm a trend follower. I'm a trend following swing trader. That doesn't work right now because the trend is all over the place. So you either adapt or you just observe, the market and learn for the next time. So yeah, appreciate being on the space with all you fine people up here. 4 o'clock on a Thursday. Tomorrow's Friday. Looking forward to it. But enjoy the rest of your day. We'll catch you in the markets tomorrow, and let's hope for a green close that maybe sets us up for a continuation next week. Take care, everyone.
Real quick, I got a couple of seconds left here. I took the 2:30 calls for FDX right here.
Perfect.
So
Thank
that's
you,
gonna be
Danny.
tomorrow's expiration, dude. Again, zero or hero. It's if you're up heavy on profits on the day, fair enough, play with profits. If you're not, please don't take this trade. This is a straight lotto. So you feel like being a gambler today with your profits, fair enough. Otherwise, stay away.
And those are trading at 663.
Yeah, I got in at 643, so I filled at the mid.
Okay. Very nice. Yeah. Okay. I see him trading right around like 650 right now. Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thank you, Danny, for being on. Appreciate that from Sim. All right. We have earnings coming out. Whenever they come out, stock market news, you keep them off. But we have TSDR in Vegas up here. We're still going to be doing stocks for another 30 minutes. So don't go anywhere if you're in the audience. Make sure that you are checking out the speakers that are up here. If you like Twitter Spaces, deeply appreciate anybody that throws a wolf account a follow. Putting out our 40 hours of content per week as much as we can and trying to make sure we have the best speakers possible. Vegas, what's going on?
Yeah, I just want to mention I longed on Amazon calls for July 15. I have 118s and 113s, and I'm long on SPY, 380 calls, and long on QQQ, 283 calls. So I'm long on the market. And, obviously we'll see what tomorrow, like what Danny says, but I had some dark pool levels I had that broke resistance. And so that was a signal for me to take some calls and see how those pan out. And, NIO as well. You guys know I'm long on NIO and looking for that breakout and heading to 25 on NIO. So really excited to see tomorrow because we've had a couple of rough Fridays with the quad witch and all the Fed talks. So I really want to see a nice blow up, bang, bang to the green side tomorrow for everybody.
Yeah, that would definitely be nice. I'm hesitant because, it feels like days like today have been so rare to have follow up on. We're often seeing basically like just, shorts covering, and then the next thing you know, we're cruising our way back down slowly. So I'm a little bit bitten here. But I think it's good to stay with the open mind, because if you're not willing to play one side or the other, that's how you often end up just kind of really missing out. TSDR, what's going on by you, bud?
Oh, sorry, I was trying to get back to the Twitter app. What do we got for earnings?
Really? FedEx, and then I believe CarMax, maybe? Stock market
Oh,
news and
No,
CarMax?
BlackBerry. FedEx, but
BlackBerry.
BlackBerry's at
Is
5 p.m., which
CarMax
is a
not
little
today?
unfortunate. I have no idea.
You've got FXD
CarMax
in
as
the
well,
title, or I believe it's
Yeah,
FDX.
CarMax.
It's
BlackBerry.
CarMax is
Would you?
tomorrow though, Gab.
Yeah,
Oh, got you.
Ooh, FedEx did just come out now, actually, getting it open. Revenue was $24.4 billion, EPS $6.87. So what was expected, so the revenue number is a miss, and the EPS number is a very small miss.
Stocks up.
Stock's up 5%. Yeah, 4%. See what happens here. Very, very quick reaction. Stock market news. I guess any other pieces you want to put out there, or are we just waiting for more info?
I can't lie to you. FedEx is not a name that I normally have in there, so there's normally like specific numbers that are important to each stock, and I can't necessarily come in and give that to you right here. So I'm just gonna wait till I see some more of those headlines out. I know Bloomberg's very quick with it, so Wolfie, I don't know if there's any other specific numbers that are kind of getting attention.
I mean, you said the prelim, right? Prelim and the revenue number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really seeing anything else different. The interesting thing about FedEx is that they raised their dividend pretty aggressively recently, so it's nice to see that it's still in line basically, and revs are not that light. They are light, but they're not as light as people feared.
So I'm seeing for this fiscal year 2023, it expects EPS to be between 22.50 to 24.50. Looks like Wall Street was expecting 22.41, or at least consensus estimates there. So that could be a reason for it moving higher. Forward guide.
Nice. Wolfie, what else are you looking at here? I guess kind of within the ecosystem, whether that's FedEx or anything else that's been going on this week with earnings.
Not really too much attention to earnings. I'm seeing the guide now on FedEx. It is above expectations, so that's a positive for the stock. UPS is going on the back of it. I'm not really like particularly concerned with earnings this week for the most part. There's not really much that I track. I was more concerned with just getting this weird week out of the way, with the congressional testimonies and all that stuff, and seeing if we could hold some sort of footing going into the last month or last week of the month. See if there is any window dressing on the back of it. That's really like the only thing that I was trying to do, survive in advance. Though there is a stock though that like kind of caught my eye late, just because I was seeing like some real outperformance. It's not a stock that I've ever traded, not a stock that I would, invest in. But it's interesting to see that it is acting that well. And it was WeWork. And part of the reason that it caught my eye is first up 14%, and it's on the back of on the back of an upgrade because of structural demand drivers from Credit Suisse. For the flex office thing, people are going to work from home and work from anywhere. But the reason that it caught my eye is because it's got 30% short interest. So if there's any sort of follow through, I think this is a name that could possibly get some sort of like retail involvement. And then it's kind of got like, squeeze potential if that were the case. But outside of that, I was looking at like some of the ARC names, some of the names that I traded Roku. Tesla was interesting because it got right back down to the 5-day and it was defended 3 times. But mostly just waiting for some sort of, relief on the back of just getting through a whipsaw week. And if we can get that, I think we have a nice little gap to fill on the Qs, for example, and some nice follow through potentially going into the end of the week. Historically, July is not a bad month for risk appetite for whatever reason. Maybe it's because people need to pay for back to school, but for whatever reason, historically, July is not a bad month. So it'd be interesting to see how we end this frustrating month of June for most people.
Okay. Yeah, solid points. My one question to you is, and then TSR, I want to throw it over to you to kind of get a little bit of thoughts on what you traded today. What reason do we have to kind of go bullish here? Is it a pure technical play? Or I guess you talked about a little seasonality. It feels like, bearish sentiment, inflation numbers bad, potential incoming recession, Powell saying we probably will have a recession, like all of these different pieces. A day like today, I kind of mentioned earlier, just feels like a little bit like short covering, right? And, things were beaten down and people maybe took some profits. And now we're getting like a firm up 12% on the day, right? Like a firm shouldn't be up 12%. So kind of like, where does the optimism and bullishness come from?
I mean, you just said it. You literally just gave me the reason, right? So you can't find anyone that's positive. If I tell you on the front end, going into Powell, that the fundamental reason that inflation is stubborn and persistent is oil, and then I sell oil off nearly 20% since then there will be at least some people that are optimistic about that, right? And we can argue about whether or not that's warranted, but there will be some. The other interesting thing is that this is the 3rd consecutive week that we've had bearish sentiment go higher. And that's interesting because if I go and explain to you like how extreme we are in oversold territory, it's kind of wild to think that people are getting more bearish in a situation like that. So only 1% of stocks are above their 10-day moving average going into today. Only 2% of stocks are above their 50-day moving average. Oversold on those metrics is like 20% on 10-day moving average, and then 40% on 50-day, give or take. And then we closed, I think it was the last 10 of 11 weeks have been down. And I think we had 2 consecutive 5% plus down weeks in a row. And so if I just gave you all of that information and was like, it sounds really bad, right? Like it's getting worse, but like what's the catalyst when you've got that extreme of sentiment being negative? What is the catalyst that would push it even further, especially with the VIX sitting at 30? So I'm not saying that it's bullish. I'm not particularly saying that like that things are going to change or anything like that. But historically, if you just look at just this year alone, if you just look at like the bear market rallies that we've had, you don't want to be caught on the wrong side of a bear market rally. So when I just start to see every single indicator tell me it's bearish, the sky is falling, and then it's Jim Cramer meme after Jim Cramer meme, and as much as I love those, and I'm guilty of them, I literally posted a quick little reel that I made today about inflation being transitory with a house on fire behind Powell. Like, it's fun and I'm in that camp, but you also have to be pragmatic about it. Like when everything is that negative, it's really tough to just really lay into it and press negative into it. In situations like that, I like to find a tactical opportunity and see what's acting constructive. And then when things start to turn, like we talked about it last week, the disconnect between 5-day and 20-day moving average on the indexes is about 6 or 7%. So, when we get close to bumping up against it and technicals start working the other way, I don't want to be caught off sides. So if I don't do anything, it's more valuable for me than trying to like stay negative. I hope that makes sense. Did I freeze?
No,
No.
you
Okay.
are good. Andrew, I did see you had your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wolfie hit the nail on the head, and I don't hear anyone really talking about this. That the real reason why the market's been in such a bad spot, like the real reason why the market is down 20% this year, is because inflation is too hot. And I know there's a lot of people out there that they're like, oh, the economy might enter a recession, like it's horrible. Most likely the economy's in a recession. We already had that first quarter of negative GDP growth. It's kind of like it's at this point it's kind of like, you're delivering a baby, you see a head coming out, and then you say like, oh, I think a baby could be coming. Like it's pretty much like right there. Um so yeah, like the inflation was a huge problem. And as Wolfie mentioned, the energy prices and the commodities have just fallen off a cliff and they finally broke to the downside. So like the last CPI number that came out, you can literally look at the numbers and do the breakdown and see, you can do an attribution and see like what was contributing to the beat on the CPI. And when I did that attribution, it was pretty much 100% crude oil prices. So like I backed out the numbers and crude oil had a 12% gain in May. And that led to that beat on the inflation number, the sell-off rates, yields going higher. So far for the month of June, we have a 9% decline in the price of crude oil. So just mathematically, not opinion, nothing like that, no tea leaves here. Mathematically, the probability that we get an inflation deceleration when this next CPI number comes out is incredibly high. And the closer we get to the end of June and crude is still in this depressed state, that just means the probability is going higher and higher and higher. So like you'll notice like that's not really like a mainstream financial narrative that like inflation likely did just peak, but we're starting to see it in the price action. Like we are seeing it in these high growth stocks. We're seeing an ARK Innovation ETF, like the individual names. And, that's likely institutions, like they can do that quick math, just like I did. And they're starting to allocate. What may end up happening, and this is really my base case, like I'm 100% long the market right now and heavily invested in these growth names, is we'll likely see these things, rip into the inflation numbers. And everyone's going to be like, what the heck? Like, why are these going up so much? And then after all of these institutions get in and after these things fly, then we'll start to see the financial media put out the articles saying like, oh yeah, wasn't it obvious, like energy came down and the commodities, and that's why inflation peaked. So I actually think right now there's like a really good edge in being long some of the growth stocks if you can find the ones that are showing relative strength and the ones that actually have earnings and cash flow. That's really like the key. A lot of these big investors, they're not just like buying everything, they really are migrating to the quality. And you can see which ones they're migrating to through the price action. I think there's a really good edge here. And I think, all it's going to take is a few more rally days for most players to really catch on to it.
Okay, very interesting. I see another hand up. I want to go to Wolfie to answer that, and I want to get TSDR an opportunity to just kind of roll through his day.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna follow up and say that some of some of the other stuff that like impacted the market in general, or just liquidity in general. So like one of them was the crypto space, right? And so if you get more and more of these headlines behind you in the crypto space and you start to have some sort of relief there, that becomes one lever or one peg that, people won't have to worry about on their portfolio. And if we've learned anything in the last 8 months, whatever it is, it's that these assets and risk on assets are the same asset class, or they're treated the same. They're not the same. They're treated the same by investors. So you basically see, tech stocks go down, you see crypto go down. You see tech stocks go up, you see crypto go up, right? And that's in part and parcel with the availability of money. It's part and parcel with interest rates. Part and parcel with with credit availability and whatnot. But when you start to see that, you know, not that it's necessarily going to go up exponentially or going to rally significantly, but just when you start to see some of these risks, subside a little bit, it gives one less thing to worry about going into it. And so, one thing I wanted to mention though is in tandem with that is when I looked it up, over 80% of stocks on the NYSE are down 20% or more. And when you map that out, that comes out to in instances in our recent memory that we've seen that happen. The COVID crash, in the taper tantrum, in 2018 Fed pivot, and then you go back to 2009 Great Financial Crisis, and then 2001, 2002 the dot-com bust. So that's not to say that they can't get more, you can't get 90%, but just you're getting to points where you're at extremes, and it doesn't take much in instances like that to just kind of push it a little bit. And one last note, and I'll shut up, but with Google in the next couple of weeks going to split, I'm pretty sure at some point some people are going to try to game that stock and try to crowd into it. As silly as that is, that's me. And if you just look at the percent of portfolios that own Google that also own other tech names that are heavily weighted, they're pretty large, right? And so if that becomes one less stock to worry about and a large cap that holds it together, you could see an instance where other stocks don't necessarily go down as fast or as aggressively, and it just again becomes this sigh of relief, okay, we're not going down. Now the important part to remember is when that happens, when you see the price change, not to change the entire trajectory of everything that you believe and be all of a sudden we're bullish. It's just to know that these things don't go down forever in a straight line.
Yeah, I definitely hear you that they don't go down a straight line. I think I've been a little bit conditioned by Brian Shannon over the last 6 months to really just not buy stocks in a downtrend. I think that's been the thing I'm looking for. And I think we're all in agreement, right? Look for the gems that are showing relative strength and are resisting, these areas. You're not saying to, go and grab something that's, down 90%. You're saying look for something that started to, make that turn or give us a reason to believe in it. Right. I think that's kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah, so two things. One, if you just take a look at where some of these financials held today, financials went back to the 2008 recession peak, right? And they went right back there, and then buyers stepped in. That's not a coincidence. So you want to do stuff like that. You want to look for pivot levels like that. If you look at what outperformed today, XBI outperformed today. XBI bottomed June 16th. And it's been trying to find some sort of floor. It broke out of a downtrend yesterday and confirmed it today. Take a look at oil. Oil names, everybody who was talking about Oxy, Exxon, all their favorites as they were going significantly higher. A lot of those names have come back to where they broke out from in a week and a half, like that, right? And so when you start to see these things, you're going to start to see more and more people at these really major pivots step in to firm up some of that stuff. And all it takes is just some of those names to find some sort of support. And then what you said, trying to find those that have like started to outperform and started to round second going into third basically, and started like whether it be an hourly or like daily reversal trend of some kind. And so if you just take that exercise and apply it, some of the most aggressively up names today were names that were heavily shorted, names that were significantly beat down, like 90% plus, and that just didn't really make any sense from a macro, fundamental, anything like that. But they found some sort of support in the last couple of days.
Okay, got it. Awesome. Thank you, Wolfie. Okay,
Thank you.
TSDR. Yeah, absolutely. TSDR, what have you been up to today?
Oh, a little bit of trading, a little bit of yelling at kids, a little bit of sitting outside in the sun.
Your kids or someone else's?
My kids. Which one do you want to hear about? The trading, the kids, or the weather?
Is there a way to tie all three together?
Well, I slapped the ask, not the kids, and then the son slapped me on the arms. Maybe did that work?
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
No. I mean, today, it's a day. Nothing too impactful. We're at some levels. We got some levels to the upside if we, to trade against. The Q's at that 285, 286 or whatever level. Top of this range, and there's some room to the upside. I wouldn't be surprised if we, get smacked at this level and, revert back. I mean, just a couple weeks ago, we were in that, major box, that major range. Maybe we experience a little bit of that now that we're at the top of this little short-term range that we've been in. But it's been definitely tradable. This range that we've kind of been in the past, whatever days has been, significantly more tradable than, that previous one. And then, we broke out of that range and just gap down. All of a sudden, like, what just happened? And, even that move lower wasn't like super tradable intraday because we were getting, 2%, 1.5% gap downs, which just, ruins everybody's life. Today, quick scalps, little frustrated, not poor execution on any trades, just missed a few that I was looking at, and just watched them go. Snow had, a couple upgrades this morning, and they received a couple upgrades again, previously a couple months ago. And it traded really, really well. I think it was on like May 18th or early June or something like that. Anyways, I remember that intraday action pretty well. I think it went from like 112 so to like 140 or something like that. It was up like 13 or 14% that day, maybe less, maybe more. And then today, right, with upgrade, I was like, this is one that I want to watch. Any dips that you see start to get bought up, probably are super slappable. And sure enough, pulled back a little bit at the open. Didn't quite pull back, to some levels that I wanted it to, and then just kind of watched it run. I was watching the 140 calls at $1.10 and just sat there looking at my stock box, watched them go up to $4, watched them go higher. I was like, man, that kind of sucks. And I scalped some squares, scalped some DocuSign, tried buying some Google puts. When we broke, like, I can't remember, 2220 level, 2225 level. So I pretty much bought Google puts at the bottom, sold for 9% loss. And, eventually later in the day when Google got down to that, demand zone right around, it was kind of like almost like a double bottom on the shorter term charts around like 2210-ish. We saw some volume. I saw some volume come in pretty quickly at those levels, and it developed a little tradable level against after bouncing off those lows. Got some YOLO-ish random Google calls, some 2260s at $5.60. Watched them go up. Sold some at about $9.60, $9.50. I'm sorry, in the afternoon, and then in the last like 20 minutes they went up to like $15. So missed out on a few bucks in the morning, but overall, I'm green by by a McChicken, as Sim likes to refer to. So can't complain. Average day.
Dude, I'm in the same boat as you with snow. I saw that upgrade come out this morning. and I was bullish, right? Saw that pullback, didn't get to my level, and I just watched it.
Yeah, dude.
And I fucking felt like a loser, dude. I watched that shit rip all day.
I was gonna pull the trigger on the 135 weeklies yesterday for like 75 cents, and then things rolled over, and I said, I'll get back to it tomorrow. So I feel your pain.
Yeah, man. That was I think like the main sentiment of today. Watching a firm go like 14%. I was like, man, should have got some of that. Watching Square, Square in the morning was interesting. Like I said, I took some scalps on it this morning. This morning, like I said, the day was summarized by quick scalps in the morning, and maybe got a little lucky in the afternoon. I guess left some on the table, so to speak. But Square, had that volatile range on the 5-minute chart, and just developed in some nice levels to trade against, and then broke out and ended up going bonkers. Same thing with DocuSign, traded that this morning, but missed out on a big trend. It is what it is. Bear markets are difficult, but they're fun to trade. I'll be back tomorrow. Hopefully, God willing, fingers crossed, knock on wood. What others? Horseshoe. I don't know. Whatever sort of luck.
Lucky rabbit's foot.
Yeah, rabbit's foot. Yeah, that's another one. But I'm gonna go take my son to swimming lessons. Come back, drop him off. Take my daughter to swimming lessons. Come back, drop her off. Take my 6-month-old to swimming lessons, and then come back, look at some charts, go to sleep, be back on it tomorrow. What a life!
Nothing like the grind.
I tell you.
I love it. Appreciate that. I like the McChicken line too.
that's from Sim.
Very nice. Okay, we're about to switch over to the next space here in about 3 minutes. So, Portfolio Hawk, I saw you wanted to request. Do you have a quick comment?
I'll wait until the next one.
The next one's going to be on real estate. Are you coming in for real estate?
I'll be there.
Okay, all right. Well, feel free to come around. It'll be a little bit of a different topic, but we appreciate you being on. All right, let's go around the panel here and just give everybody some closing thoughts and comments, some space here. So, Andrew, appreciate you being here for the last hour and a half. You graced some great commentary today. Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I think, just to close off, tomorrow's Friday. Right now, I'm 100% long the market. And I think we could have a more durable rally in the market, especially in these growth stocks, given that inflation might be coming down. But yeah, just make sure to follow your own process and, just stick with that. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on the panel. This has been a blast. All these Spaces events are amazing. So yeah, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Sim?
Yeah, just to close it off, anybody who's investing or anybody who's trading in particular in this market, if the volume's not there, guys, in the morning, a lot of people always ask me, but they're always asking if I'm trading in low volume. Absolutely not. Volume is, for me, the number one indicator that I like to use. So if the volume isn't there, if price action isn't providing during that time, there's no reason to not sit on cash, right? Going into tomorrow, being Friday, close off the week strong. And if that means not taking a trade, then just don't take the trade. Nothing wrong with sitting on cash. Remember that that's always a position. I emphasize that almost every day. But other than that, gonna go into the market tomorrow. I like the close that we had on SPY. We closed over that 377.4 level that I was looking at from yesterday. So we're going into tomorrow, assuming that we hold these levels pre-market, or if we see a nice little gap up pre-market. Definitely going to be more to the bullish bias side, but more in the short term than anything. I'm a scalp trader, so whichever way price action goes is the way that I'm going to take that trade. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on. See you guys tomorrow.
Perfect. Thanks. I'm looking forward to chatting tomorrow. Nice calls here on the space, as always. All right, we got to keep these quick because we just have about 30 seconds until our next space. TSDR, you want to say something there?
Yeah, very quickly. When the heck are we going to take down this Lee Auto? Things getting ridiculous.
It started this week. We're squeezing them.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to short
You
it.
let me know. Let me know when you pull the trig.
All right, because it's ridiculous. Let's take this thing back to $20. All right, that's it.
Let me know. Wolf, anything else?
There's a rebalance on the Russell, I think, tomorrow, so you could see some violent swings intraday, but I'm just looking to see if we have some sort of follow through. I'm gonna make a couple of videos, put them on my YouTube. YouTube's the same as my username, so check it out.
Perfect. Vegas?
Yeah, I just want to wish everyone a fantastic evening and look forward to tomorrow's trading day. Love what Andrew had to say, long on the market, and I'm happy to be in calls for now and just following the money flow. And right now I'm seeing the flow to the upside. So we'll see what tomorrow brings and look forward to sharing more content on future Twitter Spaces and look forward to watching Wolf's videos tonight. So thank you, everyone, to this phenomenal panel. Really appreciate everyone.
Awesome. Appreciate everybody who was up here. That's going to do it for the stocks. We're going to roll right into our real estate panel here. John, I just dropped you a co-host invite so you can hop up. We already have Abbas who's up here as well. We've got Portfolio Hawk, I guess, is hopping into our real estate today. I see we also have a couple other guys. We got Dan here from the team. We got Alex here from the team. We got Mike here. So the whole balcony squad is here. Anybody that wants to talk real estate, you are welcome. There we go. Chris is here as well.
Hey, real quick,
So it
Wolf,
looks
you
like
still
we
in New
have.
York?
I'm here until Saturday morning.
Oh, cool, dude. Well, if I don't see you tomorrow, have a good rest of your next 2 days, or.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. I'll try to hop into some spaces. I'm going to be at the New York Stock Exchange tomorrow morning, so I won't be doing Women of Wall Street.
Yeah, no worries.
But unless I hop on from the New York Stock Exchange, very meta.
What's going on,
Yeah,
guys?